Donald Trump, the 45th President of the United States. Needless to say, there's been a lot of change in the world since Donald Trump announced his candidacy for president 3 years ago. From his campaign to him winning the election to now, there's been plenty of insanity surrounding good old Donald Trump. For the purposes of the culture war that we find ourselves in today, I want to put forth what I believe to be the real value of Donald Trump and his term as president. Now, full disclosure, I'm not American. I'm in fact Canadian. But what happens in America affects the rest of the Western world in one way or another, so I think the entire West has a stake in Trump. Do I support him? Short answer, yes. But I believe that the real value of Trump is not exactly what he is as a politician, but what Trump is as a cultural phenomenon. First, it's important to understand what Trump himself actually is, because Trump the politician is a lot more mundane. Trump is a populist. The main two issues that he ran on were reducing immigration and protectionism. These are good positions, but whether or not he's able to deliver on them remains to be seen. Now, it's important to remember that Trump does not hold the same positions as the dissident right. He's not a nationalist, at least not in any meaningful way, and he's certainly not a Christian traditionalist. Though he might have been anti-establishment, he isn't bringing any real damning critiques of the current system to the table. So that's Trump the politician. Now, let's look at Trump as the cultural phenomenon. It's important to remember that for our purposes, cultural victories matter more than political victories. Political victories only matter insofar as they can deliver us cultural victories. Trump winning the election was a political victory. It's important that we understand that Trump is not a savior by any means. For the most part, Trump's term in office is a stopgap. The culture that we're living in is still controlled by the left. Progressives are the dominant cultural force right now. Though Trump is not a progressive, this isn't going to be overturned within Trump's term in office. So while he may put the left's cultural victories on hold, his ability to deliver cultural victories to the right is still very limited. But I believe that Trump's real value, and this extends beyond just the United States, is this. Trump is a culture jam. Like I said, progressives dominate the culture of the present day. They control the academy, the media, and they make up most of the ruling class. The best thing about Trump is that he gets under their skin. The progressive elites maintain cultural control through intimidation. They make people scared of being called racist or sexist, which gets them to conform. When people step out of line, they go on a social media tirade against them and force them back into line, or they'll just outright destroy them. Roseanne Barr being a recent example of this. But this doesn't work on Trump. He can and he does say whatever he wants. He has the money and now he has the office that he's able to get away with this, and there's nothing the blue check marks can do about it. Trump has this uncanny ability to make a comment that is ridiculous, but he provokes such an overreaction from the progressives that they are the ones that end up looking ridiculous. The first example of this came right out of the gate when he spoke about illegal immigration from Mexico and the crime that they brought with them.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us.
So right out of the gate, he faced progressive scrutiny. More recent examples of this include his comments about shithole countries, which literally brought Anderson Cooper to tears on CNN, or calling MS-13 criminals animals, which of course sent the blue check marks into a panic attack.
These are not people. These are animals. The President of the United States. Every day that you think you've seen it all, along comes another manifestation of why their policies are so inhumane.
What's important is that Trump never apologizes. He doubles down, which likewise forces the left to double down, hence making themselves look even more ridiculous.
But I'm saying the MS-13, you don't have that where you come from. MS-13, these are animals. They're coming into our country, we're getting them out. They come in again, we're getting them out. We need strong immigration laws.
The same overreaction has leaked out from the realm of politics into the culture as a whole. Remember, even though the right might have some political power, the cultural power is still held by the left. This is most apparent in entertainment. Now that progressives see a threat to their power, they feel they need to become even more heavy-handed with their cultural messages that they force through entertainment. As much as I hate to admit it, there have been good progressive movies before. The film adaptation of Watchmen comes to mind. A good film, but clearly intended to send a progressive message. But that was made in 2009. In the era of Trump, Watchmen doesn't cut it anymore. It was a good story, but it also happened to have a message. But those messages aren't quite overt enough anymore. Now we see things like Star Wars The Last Jedi or Dear White People. Productions which go beyond having a progressive slant to just being blatant propaganda. And they are desperate to promote these works of propaganda. The Last Jedi, for example, received praise from the so-called film critics, despite being hated by the Star Wars fanbase, or the movie Moonlight being awarded Best Picture in 2016. Yeah, I never heard of it either. They know that people are turning against the progressive entertainment, but the left has lost all self-awareness, so they need to maintain this facade by any means necessary. Even in the progressive stronghold, the universities, they're doubling down. In the past 2 years, we've seen professors such as Michael Isaacson or George Sicarel Omar make headlines for openly calling for violence, yet subsequently face no consequences for their actions. Likewise, in the era of Trump, we have seen even more college protests get out of hand. Two examples that come to mind are Evergreen State University and, of course, University of California, Berkeley. In this era of progressive paranoia, they've launched several other divisive campaigns such as the Me Too movement, the NFL anthem protests, or the demands for more gun control following the Parkland shooting. At the center of all this hysteria is Donald Trump. He acts as the progressive boogeyman. He's a symbol of everything that's wrong to the world, according to the progressives. And this is the real value of Trump, his ability to cause progressive purity spiraling, to get them to exclaim that the entire Western world is full of these racist, fascist bigots, and to get them to alienate as many people as possible. And the irony is that it isn't really Trump himself that's causing this. It's the boogeyman archetype that the left has created around Trump that is causing this. It's not what Trump actually is, it's what the left perceives him as that's doing the damage. Progressives control a culture by making people afraid of being called racist, sexist, homophobic, Islamophobic, or whatever. They aren't used to not being able to control someone in such a high position of power, and their only response has been to just freak out more and more over him.
I have no respect for women who voted for Trump, okay?
Yeah. Me too.
I think so poorly of them, and the reason why is because, look, I don't think that you're a single issue voter. I just think you're dumb, okay? I think you're fucking dumb.
So why is Trump's ability to cause progressive outrage so important to the dissident right? Well, I've heard certain people say that in recent years there's been an SJW takeover in the media and universities in particular. Some people say it started with Gamergate, others say it started with Trayvon Martin and BLM, and others say it began with Trump. All of them are wrong. The SJWs, the progressives of the current day, they've been in control now for well on 50 years. Feminism, mass migration, multiculturalism, affirmative action, homosexuality, critical race theory, all these things have been pushed by the mainstream for decades now. The ideas of SJWs today are just the fulfillment of the progressive movements of the mid-20th century. BLM, preferred gender pronouns, and third-wave feminists are just the end result of the egalitarian mindset that we've held in the West for decades now. It's only in recent years that many people have begun to realize the horrors of progressivism, and they're realizing it due to the lashing out over people like Trump. And that is the value of Trump, and that is what must be our goal for the Trump era. To get more and more people to lose faith in the underlying beliefs that have governed the Western world for decades. We have to think about this long term. We aren't going to win a culture war in 4 years or even 8 years if Trump gets reelected. Dethroning progressives from their cultural hegemony is going to take a lot more than that. So in the Trump era, we need to get them to show their cards. Napoleon Bonaparte once said, "Never interfere with your enemy when he is making a mistake." The past few years have been a mistake for the progressives, and that's a mistake we need to let them make. In the past year, Hollywood, who have been pushing feminist and progressive messages for years now, have completely discredited themselves through the rampant sexual misconduct in their industry. And their only response has been to just double down on these messages, but the rampant hypocrisy is just going to expose these messages as untrue. We want to see progressive entertainment and celebrities implode. We want Antifa to riot when a university invites a speaker that they don't like. We want SJWs to ruin beloved film franchises. We want Sally Boynton Brown to go on the stage at the DNC Chair Forum and say that it's her job to shut other white people down.
And my job is to shut other white people down when they want to interrupt.
Because every time they cross that line, more and more people will see progressivism for what it really is, and more people will turn away. And it's working. In the last few years, we've seen huge increases in the number of people joining dissident right movements. Not only that, but we've also seen a whole bunch of people who are not in the far right be labeled as such anyway. Jordan Peterson is far right, Sargon of Akkad is far right, Dave Rubin is far right, Tim Pool is far right. In a sane world, none of these people would ever be considered right-wing, but the left's paranoia is pushing them in that direction. They might not be on the right, but there's certainly no place for them on the left. This is a good thing for us because it's becoming more and more difficult to be on the left, and eventually people will look for alternatives. And this is what we need to do in the Trump era. We need to get under their skin, we need to cause them to overreact, and no matter what, never ever apologize for it.
A search for who distributed this. This is a racially charged flyer at Montgomery Blair High School. It reads, "It's okay to be white." And it was posted on 10 doors at the school. Tim Barber with what we know about the suspect.
Montgomery Blair's principal believes this "It's okay to be white" poster could be part of a national campaign to create racial tension, and they believe this hooded person is behind it.
And this is the real value of Trump. It's not Trump himself, but the chaos that he causes on the left. We need to get the left to purity spiral. We need to get them to push away as many people as possible, and we need to be there to take those disaffected with progressivism in. Our goal in the Trump era should be to break people's trust in the egalitarian values that have governed the West for so long now. We're in a time of increasing polarization. This amount of strife is not going away anytime soon. As much as I hope to avoid conflict, this benefits us. Progressives are the mainstream, so political instability is beneficial to the opponents of progressivism. And this instability is causing them to go to more and more extremes to secure their power. What we need to do is to exploit that. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and follow me on Twitter. Link in the description. Thank you for listening. Till next time, endeavor.